In the year of our Lord, 2024, the world is moving faster into anxieties and stressors of the times, and our break from these systems, ironically, usually create just as many stressors. A video game is rarely a pause for the madness, but a madness in of itself. Systems upon systems, working together, updating into more complexity. Battle passes, games as a service, DLC, updates, patches, trailers, teasers, XP rewards, catching up on the latest content. The list goes on. And yet somehow, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I think art has always reflected the times, and gamers of today need and crave multiple layers of investment. The problem is, companies are so incentivized to train people to this repeating revenue cycle, it's getting more common for people to be held hostage by one or a couple of strong titles. For me, those are Final Fantasy XIV and Warframe, which while I am fond of these, the expectation I'm able to carry these kind of investments into the entire gaming market is an impossibility. But I have weird exceptions to this rule, and a lot of this just has to do with my autistic way of looking at things. Games are a stim. They're pieces of software that feel good to interact with, that have repeated motions that we do again and again. In fact, as insane as my hours are for Final Fantasy XIV, where I've lost 26 days of my life, pales in comparison to Crash Bandicoot 2. I set this all up because I have an addiction stim I want to talk about. Lunistice is a 3D precision platformer from the developer A Grumpy Fox that's available on Steam and Switch for only $5. It was originally supposed to only take 30 days to make, but the dev decided to make it over a year-long project. And while you can beat it in a little over an hour if you're good, I have somehow played this game for about 24 hours. And a lot of that is I just kind of love this game. Lunistice feels like what if Croc and Sonic had a baby, and Crash Bandicoot helped raise the child, but really just enough to teach the child how to spin, as Bandicoots are known to do, with an art style based off the memories of what the Sega Saturn platformers used to be. The game feels like a classic lost to time. It's actually getting to be more common for creators closer to my age to make projects as throwbacks to this era. But rather than being trapped by the limitation, the best of these vibe with the periods as a starting point and find their own way through. This is mostly a linear platformer. It's a kind of game where your goal is to play it a very specific way as fast as possible, with some harder optional paths that, if you're in the right zone state that the game wants you to feel, are just amazing to get. The character movements have weight to them, with your turning not being instant but carried by the momentum of the run. It sounds harder to control, but in practice, as you're running, it feels tight. Like the platforming equivalent of a car, you can always just feel in control unless you vastly change your mind mid-travel. You're able to do a double jump and a spin, which mitigate mistakes and give you more options. It can keep up longer airtime, but if used properly, can boost you further at the expense of the height. There's something deliberate in every jump, and it feels good to do, even if the goal is mostly to just follow the path of breadcrumbs. I think a lot of what this game does right is that sensory perfection. It's the feeling of movement that feels controllable and tight, but bound by levels that perfectly complement and expand on core ideas and take advantage of the flow. Its levels are colorful and distinct, and where a replay always feels like a mini journey. It's not an accident that all the levels in the game are comforting. Places of warmth, nostalgia, the kind of things games used to do, but here, because the levels change so frequently, you never get bored of an environment. The soundtrack isn't an all-time great or anything, but it's a solid, fun soundtrack. They all move at a similar BPM, encouraging forward momentum, and slowly getting you to take more risks, even if it's a subconscious thing. Now, obviously, I'm not a furry, I'm just an actual bunny, but I think Hana being a fuzzy little dude only adds that sensory autistic-ass appreciation. While it's an easy throwback to the era of mascots, the fuzzy tail actually has a weird little side effect for the momentum of the game. The motion makes more mental sense because you have the tail's physics that take account for your movements. And ironically, because this tail is used in the spin attacks, it adds a little mental check for just how far the spin attack reaches, helping you to gauge the distance. While my channel is almost always about stories in games, I'll be honest, I kinda don't know the story. I like it's a game with weird broken elements and hidden sci-fi, and there's places we can take this in the updated version in the sequel. I feel like these little layers of complication don't really add any value to me. And yeah, there's a huge updated version of this game on the way, although we currently don't have a timeline. In fact, there's a demo available right now that has a completely different art style for the characters and an entirely new second playable character. And it's almost better in every way. The art style pops, it has better animation with squash and stretch, with a model that just looks better. The level designs have been changed and refined, the accessibility options have been expanded in ways that are genuinely helpful. The coolest thing is the secondary protagonist has his own mechanics in his movements. And with that comes unique challenge levels that really take advantage of the kid. And yet, as cool as this demo is for an update we're all going to get for free, I feel selfish to say I kind of want to keep the old version of the game as it exists now as well. Even with the worst animations, Hannah has this innocent quality missing from the new version of the game. There's something more humble about the animations, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because it's a thing I've played for 24 hours. And it's funny, in writing this I can't think of many reasons why I would like this version better than the new one. There are so many improvements and fixes, and I am genuinely excited, but during those times when the world seems at its scariest and unknowable, there's something about art giving you a moment to just freeze in time. A place where you know the expectation of the rules and goals, and you find comfort in your skills improving and getting sections a little faster than before. But these also keep us static. These hyperbolic time chambers offer us a moment of reflection while the world continues to move on. And you know, it's something we need to accept. That growth requires change, that these little steps of advancement lead us miles beyond the people we were before. But still, I think there's something true that my heart wishes. The things that bring me comfort, I wish were closer to the moon. They're beautiful, constant, a known quantity, but sometimes even just the simplest of pleasures are enough to make the night sky beautiful.